Hi, it's Rebecca with Lemons and Curls, and with me I have
Alaina.
Woohoo! We are going to do a bonus podcast today because we found an article that we just cannot not respond to, right?
No way.
No way. So with us today, though, we have a special guest. We have Luke Walsh. Say hi, Luke.
Hello. Special guest, aka my brother.
Your brother.
Your awesome brother.
We're going to weigh in with our own bias here about this article we found from Harvard Magazine, written by Erin O'Donnell, on the risks of homeschooling.
That's the title.
It is.
So this is a slightly biased report, so we're going to be slightly biased as well.
Yeah, retort. This got our feathers in a ruffle, I tell you.
You might hear a little bit of ranting.
But you know what? I just really wanted to weigh in first in order to explain that as, you know, we are currently homeschooling, but that is not where I started mentally. So when I was pregnant with my first child, Alaina, I was anti-homeschooling. I was working as an engineer, and I was a consultant and loving my job and loving my career. But the person that I was consulting for ran out of work when I was 8 months pregnant, and I found myself without a job. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm supposed to be staying home. So I went from not really caring for staying home moms, really, to be perfectly honest, to, oh my gosh, this is actually where I'm supposed to be. And having a complete turnaround and respect for homeschool moms. But I maintained my anti-homeschooling views. And as Alaina grew and I had my second child, who's
sitting next to you? Hi, Luke. He's right here.
I started meeting homeschoolers and realizing they're not nearly as...
They're actually out of their house.
They're out of their... I met them. And they didn't look like what they look like on TV. The only exposure I had to a homeschooler before I met a couple is there was a Law and Order episode where this woman was homeschooling her children, and they were abused, and they were literally chained to their desks.
Oh my goodness.
And the police had to come in and rescue their kids. And it was this a really awful thing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what all homeschoolers are like. I cannot do that to my child. Right. And
my child needs better.
So it was, very false view of it. But until I really started to learn about homeschooling and challenge my initial perceptions of it, that's just where I was headed. And so I met a friend, and she was homeschooling. And then when I tried to put you into school, it wasn't going well. And I'm like, okay.
I had a lot of fun doing art projects. That's the only thing I remember of preschool.
She's an art person.
Yeah, you did 1 year preschool. Yeah. And then you had another year coming, and you were way advanced for preschoolers. I know everybody thinks that their child is brilliant, but really you just loved reading, and you were in preschool.
I love reading.
So I'm like, this isn't working. So maybe we'll just try keeping you home. And it took a lot of convincing from my husband. He felt the same way, that homeschooling was just way too out of the box.
Wow.
Very much like boxes.
And we have public schoolers in our family, teachers and assistants and stuff. And we're like, okay, this could really kind of blow up our family. So, but I finally convinced him that we should try it, and we have been homeschooling ever since.
Now, we're still alive.
It's still alive. And actually there's been a couple positives about it, which we will go into.
Just a couple.
And so since I've had both sides of the spectrum, I can kind of see where Erin O'Donnell in this article can have this misconception, because I have been there. But I also wanted to bring you guys into this mix as homeschoolers, where what do you guys think of what they're saying? And what are your takes on some of this? So this article was put out in the May-June 2020 with the Harvard Magazine. So if you want to find that.
It's not May yet.
No, they always come out early. So it's May, June, but they come out in April. And Excuse me.
It's
the same thing.
So there's a few parts in here that we want to just cover. So before we talk to everybody, Alaina, you've had 1 year of preschool.
Which doesn't really count.
But besides being homeschooled from me, what other outside schooling have you had?
I've been doing online classes, mostly through HSLDA.
Which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association.
Yeah. Which is actually mentioned in this article, which is funny. But I'm doing online classes with that. I did some last year. And then, actually last year I did one through HSLDA and then one through Apologia. And then...
Which is a science curriculum.
Yeah, the science curriculum. And then this year I'm doing 2 of them through HSLDA.
Right.
So.
And then you had...
Next year I'm going to be going to the actual college and taking college classes there.
In a real building.
In the building outside my house. So I'm kind of nervous, but it's going to be really cool.
It'll be good. And then you had math, too, on an online class.
That was like a long time ago.
And then Lucas had math online.
Yeah, I just finished my Algebra 1 online.
Right. But other than that, Luke, you've had just homeschooled, basically.
I did not go to public school at all. It's all homeschooled in one online class so far.
One online class.
That wasn't like a live online class, or
no, it wasn't.
It's pre-recorded.
Times. No, like the class times that I had were like at 8 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then
but with a live teacher.
Do what Alaina did, where I'll do some more online classes, and I'll go to the college early. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to be caught off until I either go to college or get a job.
So you guys have had a little bit of exposure from other teachers, and then also
driver's training.
Training
classes. I've done other classes for like co-ops.
This shouldn't count, but what is it called? Alaina, Hunter Safety. That was like a class.
That was so boring.
For a week, 2 hours long after soccer practice.
So we do have a little bit of exposure, and then also so there's some extracurricular activities that you guys have done, so people kind of understand where we're coming from. Mm-hmm. We've always kind of tried to put you guys into things. So you were in karate for
a long time. That was fun.
For few years. You got your junior black belts and that.
When we were really little, we did like dance and gymnastics.
Did dance and gymnastics, karate over the years.
Yeah. Then
Boy Scouts.
Then we figured out mountain biking team, and that's a lot of fun. I've been doing Boy Scouts for a long time.
A couple seasons.
Oh, 1 season. I did 1 season.
I did 2 seasons.
Yep, soccer. You did cross country, Alaina.
Yep. Mountain biking, Civil Air Patrol, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts for Luke too.
Yeah, I went through Wolf Cub Scouts, and now I am a Star Boy Scout.
Yep.
I think. Yeah.
So we
don't even know what rank you are.
Well, I'm very close to life, so.
So we have had, as far as our family unit, we homeschool, but there's also been a lot of other exposure. Mm-hmm. Now, compared to other homeschooling families that we have encountered, because we have lived in 3 different locations while we have homeschooled. Yep. So 2 of them have been in Minnesota, and then in the middle there, we lived in Wisconsin for 6 years.
We lived in Hutchinson.
So really quick, do you think that the other homeschooling families, all the homeschooling, because we have been in different groups for each one of these, do you think that we are odd in the amount of things that we do outside of the home with other things going on? Do you think that we're unique?
Not really.
Well, everybody's different. So we're unique, but...
No, but are we unique in the amount of stuff we had going on? Are we the only ones for homeschoolers that are going and joining the different groups and stuff like that?
No.
Where do you guys see...
I'm not quite sure about like here, because we haven't been here for very long. But a couple of things that I've been doing here, there's been other homeschoolers doing. Like Luke and I worked at the ski hill. Mm-hmm. We worked during the weekdays for our school group, like helping with the public school groups. And there were a couple of other guys that were homeschooled.
So like when we were friends with other organizations, one thing that I saw, because we helped with a speech group called ICC, Institute for Cultural Communicators, and it met once a week, and there's other homeschoolers with there, and through that organization, we realized that homeschoolers don't stay home, right? No. They are
very busy
everywhere doing everything.
Well, homeschoolers are probably more different places than public schools because we can take our school and go to the park and do our school.
We've done school in coffee shops a lot.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing. Like if we're traveling, we'll go to a coffee shop and we'll get a coffee and we'll just do our school for a couple hours there.
We've got some suspicious looks from Caribou workers and we've been there for like 5 hours. Yeah. They're like, are you going to leave soon? And we're like, nope.
We are here.
Doing a math test.
But homeschooling does not look like what it does right now with the middle of this virus and these stay-at-home orders.
This is really annoying being stuck at home.
Yeah, we're homeschooled, so we're at home anyways, but we do miss going places because we're not at home 24/7 for weeks normally.
Right. So we are not unique in the fact that we go out and we do all these organizations. Okay. I really love taking advantage of opportunities, and we're going to go through a lot of kind of like a talk about opportunities in our podcast that's coming out. Yep. At the beginning of May. So keep an eye out for that one. So we love taking advantage of opportunities, and we're going to, like I said, talk more about that. But we are not unique in that aspect when it comes to homeschoolers. So there are some things, though, in this article. So what do you guys want to tackle first? So let's talk about right on the, it's in the bottom of the first article.
First page or
this top of the second page,
paragraph?
Top of the first paragraph. Oh my goodness, my words right now.
The whole article right here.
So
didn't know what you meant there. Paragraph.
Top of the first end of the first paragraph. It says homeschooling. She says, which she Erin O'Donnell is quoting Elizabeth Bartholet, which I don't know if it's Bartholet or Bartholet. So excuse us if we butcher her name, but quoting Bartholet, homeschooling, she says, not only violates children's right to a meaningful education and their right to be protected from potential child abuse, but may keep them from contributing positively to a democratic society. What do you guys think about that, homeschoolers? Are you being kept from contributing positively to a democratic society?
Well, I think the parents might have a little bit more say in the views, like Democratic or Republican. Like, if they're raised in a Democratic family, then they're more prone to be a Democrat. And if they're raised in a more Republican family, they're more prone to be Republican.
Well, what they're talking about here with it being a democratic society is being a society where it's not necessarily party lines being between Democratic and Republican, but it's about having a society where everybody gets a vote. Mm-hmm.
So are homeschoolers not voting?
Homeschoolers are, according to her, you're kept from contributing positively to a democratic society.
But we can vote, and we know, what's going on just as much as other people. So
right. Many homeschooling families are actually more active in the whole political scene also.
Because they can take field trips. Let's go watch a city council meeting or something like that. Homeschoolers are like, I'm going to be at school all day. So,
right. And you still have requirements. We still have to take certain classes and stuff like that, and a class on government and stuff before you can graduate.
Classes and
but I don't understand what she means by that. But what I find very interesting is the beginning of that sentence. She says only violates children's right to a, quote, meaningful education. So who is the one that's supposed to determine what a meaningful education is?
That's a hard question. Should it be the government, or should it be teachers, or should it be parents?
Right. Who gets to decide that? So a meaningful education to the government is going to have a different view. If you think about your worldview as a pair of glasses that you're looking through. So the government is looking through a pair of glasses and they're saying, okay, this is what a meaningful education should be. Parents, even maybe without a Christian viewpoint, are going to look through their own set of glasses. This is what a meaningful education should be. Mm-hmm. Us as Christian family, we have a Christian worldview. We are looking through a specific as far as meaningful education.
So their definition of meaningful education might be different than ours. So our meaningful education does not meet the requirements for theirs, so they think that we're doing a bad job.
Basically, that's what it sounds like. Yep. Mm-hmm. So it's we're violating. I am violating your right to a meaningful education.
No, I've got a better education than most public schoolers.
Do you think so?
Meaningful to me.
Be perfectly honest. I mean, I know I'm mom sitting here, but I want you to be perfectly honest. Do you feel like you are getting a meaningful education?
Well, I think so because, well, like, I'm ahead in math. Like, I did high school classes here.
Okay.
I'm in 8th grade. But I think it's just really good because you get more one-on-one time than, like, public schoolers do. Because it's a class of, like, 30 kids and a class of 2 kids who are in high school, middle school. You get a lot more one-on-one and explanation when you need it.
Okay.
You can choose what you want to do too. Like at the beginning of this year, Mom and I went over my high school transcript. Like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to do this. Like,
You can do that.
I had way too many credits this year. She's like, why don't you just move this on to a different year? I'm like, okay. So, like, you can decide when you want to do things. It's as long as you get them done. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do a really easy high school course or a really hard one.
Well, and as a homeschooling parent, I've realized over the years that a meaningful education isn't necessarily making sure that you get exactly all of the requirements that you need. I know that that's what the government believes, and I actually have to make sure that you get certain amount of credits, certain amount of hours and stuff like that. But to me personally, a meaningful education is an education where you learn to love to learn. Does that sound weird?
No, it makes
A lot of L's in that sentence.
There's
but
like,
I
it's an
get it,
alliteration, and I never knew what alliteration was until I started homeschooling.
Multiple words with the same first letter and the same pronunciation of the first letter.
Whoa.
So I'm like, hey, that's an alliteration. But I learned that it's not about exactly what we teach you, because there's always going to be holes. There's holes in public school. There's holes in homeschooling. But what I want you guys to come out with is not only a good education, but also how to learn, how to find the information that you need.
It doesn't really matter like what requirements you have if you forget everything. You just want to know what you like. You measure it by how much you've learned, not how much you've done.
Yeah, but there's with homeschooling, like, this kind of a little bit off topic, I think. But with when you homeschool, do you have more kind of free time? Like, it's more flexible, so you can go get different life skills. Like last year, me and Alaina worked at a ski hill, and that got us some good learning experience on learning how to, like, set skis and learning how to learn in different environments, I guess.
Here at home, so you have a lot of free time too at like the end of school days, and you're like off of the wood shop building tables.
Yep.
So you know how to build a whole bunch of things, like,
rather than sitting in a schoolroom and spending an hour at lunch, I can eat lunch and do my math at the same time, get done early, and then build mountain biking trails or build something out of wood.
I think for one of your birthdays, we gave you a pile of wood.
And for Easter, you gave me
more
a pile of wood.
Luke's happy as long as he has wood.
Okay, so if we're moving on, so there's a couple quotes in the next paragraph. It says, where there are very, very few requirements that parents do anything. Okay, so homeschool governing laws right now, especially like in Minnesota and Wisconsin where we were, we have to make sure that we are getting the same high school credits requirements that high schoolers get. So people don't realize that. Like, in order for me to be able to get you a transcript and have you graduate, you have to fulfill the same requirements as any other high schooler. And then additional to that, though, there are really no other additional requirements. We are doing the same things that the public schoolers are having to do.
Like, if you want to go to high school after college, like, you want to have certain credits in your transcript anyways. You can plan ahead and be like, okay, I want to go to this college, so I'm going to do this class and this class and this class. So
now, additional, she says that people can homeschool who've never gone to school themselves, who don't read or write themselves. Now,
you could,
I can't really speak too much personally on this because I am an engineer and my husband is an engineer. So we have had a lot of education. At the same time, I went to public school growing up, and I had a very decent education in public school. None of this what we're saying is saying that people should not use public school. It is absolutely the most viable option for most people out there. And I have no problems with that. I have no problems with improving our school systems, making sure that the public schools are the best that they can be. And we use some of their systems, like their, sports and things like that. We do use them. I think that they have just a huge value. The system is broken, but they also have a huge value.
They have a good start. Yeah, they have a potential.
So, if I even just think back, like I am really not using my college education to homeschool you guys. I am trying to use my public school education to homeschool you. So I am learning right alongside with you because I have
learned entire math curriculum when you did it with us.
Well, she works with the math curriculum, so actually now it's the math curriculum.
Now I do, better. But when I first started math with you guys, I realized that I needed to teach you different than what I learned in the public school. So I've researched, oh my gosh, I researched math curriculum. Weird. This is what homeschoolers do.
There's a whole bunch of different curriculums you can choose, like depending on what you want to do with your kids. I mean, like.
So I researched math curriculum. I researched science. I researched English. We tried things. Spelling. We tried things. A lot of them worked. Some of them didn't. I'm horrible at spelling. we love our children for what they're good at.
I'm just gonna pretend you didn't say that.
And then, so we did a lot of research, but I am not an expert. Being an engineer, I am not an expert in English. Okay, but Alaina, you are fabulous in English, right?
Thank you.
That is something that you have excelled in. I found a curriculum that would challenge you and help me teach you and relearn the English side of things. So it's not about the parents' education being able to teach, because we have books and curriculum that help us teach you guys.
Yeah. So it's basically what the homeschool curriculum is for. It's not just a whole bunch of worksheets for kids. There's books. Sometimes the books for the parents are bigger than the books for the kids. Like it's a huge lesson book, and then maybe a couple worksheets, maybe a couple things for the kids, but it's typically just mostly for the parents.
Right.
Like it's a lot easier than you think it is.
It's like you teach the kids effectively.
Right. So it's not about the parents' education, about whether or not they are educated to educate, but whether or not they have the that
it
excitement.
Says in here about needing to learn how to read and write. I think that is pretty helpful when you're teaching kids, because most of the curriculums you have to know how to read. Right. But I know there's a lot of places that you can for adults to learn how to read and write.
Mm-hmm. You can learn right along with your children.
Yeah, if you have younger kids, just teach them while you're learning with them. I mean, it's not too hard to learn how to do.
Right.
I mean, it probably would be kind of hard, but you can do it. I believe in you.
Right. Well, and most of the homeschooling families that we have come across over the years, I'd say not most of them, maybe about half of them, if I'm thinking about that, the parents do not have a college degree. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them grew up in homeschooling families too, and a lot of homeschoolers go to college.
Right. So a lot of them went to homeschooling. They grew up as homeschoolers, hidden away because it was illegal at the time. A lot of them are, new to it. But this idea as a society that you cannot homeschool unless you have a teaching degree is false. It is bogus. It's exactly it. It is so wrong, because it's not about the parent's degree.
It's more about how you teach them in the curriculum, because the curriculums help you. They're not just giving your child worksheets. They're giving you how to teach them properly.
Yep. And this article actually points to the memoir Educated by Tara Westover. Now, I have read this book twice. I absolutely love this book.
Which book?
And
I should read it.
You should read it. And that was one of those things that I was going to put on your list to read.
Because you're a homeschool teacher. You can do that.
And you've got so many books right now.
I know. I think I'm supposed to be reading Frankenstein right now.
That will come up after our break ends today. So yeah, Frankenstein's on your list right now. Ooh. But maybe we should pull out Frankenstein and put in Educated by Tara Westover. This book is amazing though, because it's about Tara, her actual memoirs, about how she grew up, her memories.
It's like a story.
Yep. And it's her truth. Okay. Mm-hmm. She grew up in a very strict religious Mormon family in Idaho. And her dad, not to be completely rude, but clearly had some mental challenges. She kind of claimed he was never really diagnosed, but she believes he was bipolar. So he was very much extreme in the Mormonism, and kept her children, especially her being the youngest, home. And they didn't, besides teaching her how to read and write, she did not have any type of education. She tried here and there, but she had the resolve when she got to high school that she wanted to go to school. And she was so ignorant, though. Some of the things in the book that she did not know seem weird to us, but at the same time, it makes complete sense because she was kept so isolated.
Yeah.
But I love the book because she went from that to being at the top schools around the world. And she taught herself. And it shows me, too, that even if we are not perfect in our education, if we can teach children to love to learn, you can still overcome some things that you haven't actually learned. Now, the author in here takes the opposite view about how if you keep your kids home to homeschool, you're going to be like Tara Westover and educated. And that makes me so angry. She says at the last sentence of this paragraph, that's what can happen under the system in effect in most of the nation. That we are going to be creating uneducated, ignorant children by keeping them home.
That's completely false.
That makes me so angry.
I need to rant a little bit more.
I think we should move on, Mom. I think we should just move
Okay.
on.
I'm going to take a sip of my coffee.
Okay, so
what do you think?
The next paragraph, can I just move on to the next paragraph while you're drinking your coffee?
Yeah.
So I'm going to read part of this. I'm going to rant a little bit now. It says, but the surveys of homeschoolers show that majority of such families, by some estimates up to 90%, are driven by conservative Christian beliefs and seek to remove their children from mainstream culture. So that is very much what we did. Like, the schools have a very, they teach, evolution, and you're not allowed to, pray or anything in your classrooms. So we have a lot more Christian worldview with that. The next sentence says, Bartholet notes that some of these parents are extreme religious, I don't know what that word is, ideologues?
Ideologues? Never heard of that word. I'm sorry.
Who question science and promote female subservience and white supremacy. That has nothing to do with Christian beliefs. Literally, it is complete opposite. But she, assumes that Christian beliefs mean, question science, promote female subservice, and white supremacy. I mean, that's, not even related. Hi, Timber. Hi.
Our dog just came in to say hi.
Hi. You are very cute. Okay.
So she went from rant to, totally cuddling the dog.
He's so cute, though. Hi, Timber. You want to come snuggle?
So this fact that she says that, she completely turns around.
I know, she makes it seem like Christian beliefs mean, they think that science is not real, females should be put under males, and white people are better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. That's not what Christian belief is. I mean, seriously.
So, Luke, do you feel like you have been taught that females should be subservient to men?
No, and the white supremacy, not really. We read history like everybody else, and we know that what happens when you take over, I guess. And the different, I don't know how to put this, but the different arguments to each of the
we look at
sides.
things from many different points of view. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even if, back to all the homeschooling families I know, I do not know of any of them. As Christian and, more, I would say that we are a little bit more worldly than some of our other homeschooling family friends are. Some of them do have a little bit more protection and shelter over their kids than what we do. Sometimes I feel guilty in that. I'm am I exposing my kids to too much or whatever? But at the same time, I'm looking at, even from their perspective, I'm looking at what I know of even the more sheltered homeschooling families that we do know, which still are
not as extreme as some people would think.
Right. No. But I'm they still don't have this view. We teach from a Christian worldview, but that's not what this is.
The questioning science thing really annoys me, because that's one of the things that I love learning about is the science behind the Christian worldview, and then the uniformitarianism, which is the evolution kind of thing, the differences, and learning, not just learning just about the Christian worldview, but learning about the evolution thing, and learning what the process is that they came up with that. And it's questioning science is what everyone does. That's what,
and you would not give
Yeah.
You would not get both if you went to public school.
No, you would just get the evolution form. Like, we learn the science curriculum we've done, we learn about both. And you can make your own decisions too. Like, it promotes the Christian worldview, but it doesn't say this is what you need to learn. This is how it happened. This is what...
This is,
It might go into a little more in the Christian, but it's not as biased.
It shows the evidence for both.
It does.
Right.
And then
and allows you to make your decision.
Right.
Like you just said.
So, she views the absence of regulations. I believe you had, oh no, you didn't have this one. You had that one, Mark. So not regulating, which is something that I feel that we need to touch on real quick. She says earlier in here, and then also at the end about regulations of homeschooled children. So first of all, the regulation meaning that we will catch potential harm. A potential child abuse, neglect stuff by sending kids to public school, because the teachers can see the kids, and there's another set of eyes on the children to make sure that they're protected.
That is important, though.
I can see their argument.
Right.
That's a good argument right there.
Right. So that is a very common argument as far as making sure that kids are protected, and then also regulation on making sure that children are getting the equivalent education that the public schools would have, so that it does not threaten the U.S. democracy. So
maybe public schoolers should be like requirements to get the same education as homeschoolers. I mean, maybe it should be the other way around. Maybe they're not getting the best education.
Maybe they should start, making sure that they get our level of education, right?
Our level.
I'm going to start getting into the same pompous attitude that they have. No, I'm not. I am not going to do that. So first of all, mandated reports as far as protecting children from abuse and neglect. Now, there is no ideal circle, whether you're in the public school sector circle or homeschooling or a little bit of both. There is no ideal. There are, unfortunately, in our world, children that are going to slip through the cracks. There's going to be children in the public school. Whether or not they go to public school does not eliminate them from abuse. They can catch it possibly by teachers that are with the kids more often, but it does not eliminate abuse. It actually can create more of an abusive situation, because now we have kids that are supposed to be socializing your kids now abusing each other, bullying each other, and causing high levels of teen and children suicides. So there is no ideal situation. And so the fact that this keeps coming up really drives me crazy, because it doesn't matter. There are going to be homeschooling families, such as in Educate by Tara Westover's situation, where there are children that are going to be abused. And it's hard and it's unfortunate. And, I completely agree that we need to make sure that children are protected, but sending them to a public school does not protect them. It doesn't fix the situation. Yeah. So it's awful to think about, and it makes my heart hurt, and it kind of brings in, the whole, there's children that are sex slaves and everything else. And it is awful, heart-wrenching, but it's not going to be solved by sending kids to public schools. And for the majority of parents that bring their kids home in order to get an education, abuse aside, now just like the level of education, our burden of proof as a homeschooling mother is so high. Yeah. Like, I have to prove every time somebody finds out that we homeschool that I am giving a higher education than they would get in a public school. I feel that burden every time we talk to somebody about being homeschoolers.
Even if you send us away with less education than other public schoolers, it's not going to be because we can learn it. It's just going to be sitting on your heart later and be like, why didn't I do better? It's kind of more pressure on you than it is for us learning too.
Right. There is a huge amount of pressure on me. And our family had a harder time. A couple of members of our family had a harder time coming around to it because it was a new idea. And so one of our family members did ask us well, who's going to make sure that you're doing a good job? Who's going to check on you? And I was trying to defend myself. I'm like, I don't need to have somebody check on me. And finally it dawned on me. I asked this individual, I'm like, okay, so what if Jeff and I were in a plane crash and we passed away and left our 2 children, right? Horrible to think about. But I'm like, and we put in our will that we would have you educate our children. You're not allowed to put them in public school. You have to educate our children at home. Would you do a good job? And that individual stopped and thought and went, yes.
Do the best job you possibly could.
Right? But that's how I feel every day. I'm like, you guys, I need to do the best job I possibly can for you. And with that,
no
we have pretty, and you guys have, and I set myself up.
On you, Mom.
I set myself up because now you guys have these lofty goals. Luke is going to be in high school next year. You are a sophomore. Okay. So I'm thinking I'm going to lay back in high school and just kind of watch things roll. But no, we now need to, so
transcripts,
all these crazy things now because you have lofty goals and we're trying, all right, let's go. We're on a huge trajectory.
You have to keep track of grade point averages and grades and stuff now too. Middle school, you just be like, oh, you did that, good job. Now you're like, okay, now we need to actually do a good job on our school.
And I need to be able to prove it and everything else. It's I knew I did before, but now it's okay, now we have to really buckle down. So it is a lot of work.
How about we keep going? We've been on that one for a good 5-6 minutes.
Okay, Luke, is there anything else in here that you wanted to touch base on before? I have a couple more questions on the end, but
yeah, I can do this one. In the next part, I don't know who says. I think it's Bartholet maybe, but this is a quote. But it's also important that children grow up exposed to community values, social values, democratic values, ideas about non-discrimination, tolerance, and of other people's viewpoints. So being homeschooled doesn't necessarily mean you're ignorant of social values and community values and stuff like that. You're not at home. You still take part in other activities that are social, I guess.
It says grow up exposed to ideas about non-discrimination and tolerance of other people's viewpoints. I think sometimes homeschoolers are more tolerant about other people's viewpoints than public schoolers are.
Right. I think you are too. But what are the values that they're talking about? Because if you look at public schooling, the children there and their values, and you look at ours, ours are a little bit
different.
Yeah.
Different.
Nobody's the same. Everybody's different.
Well, and it's we don't have the same social discussions. You guys really, we don't have TV, right? And you guys aren't talking about we have the Kardashians.
We don't have it.
Right? You guys aren't talking about who the next, who the latest hot, actor or actresses or,
How do you know we aren't looking at these discussions middle of the night.
And you guys don't have the same verbiage. You guys aren't necessarily picking up on a lot of the same the hot words that are going on right now because every few years the words change as far as how kids talk. So you guys are different.
Maybe not. But we still go around places, so we still get latest fashion kind of thing. Just because you're homeschoolers doesn't mean you have to dress differently. A lot of homeschoolers I know dress kind of fashionably.
You don't have to wear, you don't have to wear long dresses all the time.
You can wear shorts.
You know what? And I had that misconception before I knew homeschoolers could be normal that if you were a homeschooler, you had to wear denim skirts.
No.
I actually don't own a denim skirt.
Neither do I.
They're kind of cute though.
And I told one of my homeschooling friends that. And she's like, oh my gosh, I need to get rid of my denim skirt.
Some of them are cute though.
I don't own
They are.
But that's shorter ones, knee length, the buttons on them. But
yeah. Okay. So later on, she's talking about this tolerance of other people's viewpoints. So tolerance versus acceptance. Okay. So
are you leaving, Timber?
We learn in our family, and I know it's not necessarily the same, but one thing that Christianity does teach and we really try to promote in our family is that you don't have to agree with everybody to love them. It is okay to disagree with the way other people live their lives.
Just agree to disagree and then just be friends and love on them anyways.
Right. My best friend in this whole world is an atheist. Mm-hmm. I do not agree with her viewpoints on this, but I love her and her family to death, right? It does not mean that just because we disagree on things that we can't love each other.
Just be like, oh, like, okay, I'm like a Christian, you're not, you're a bad person, I'm not gonna be friends with you. That's like not how this works. You can be friends with everybody. Like,
right.
It doesn't matter.
So, and I know not everybody can understand this and agree with this, but really, this is the heart of Christianity. And so this whole idea where like you have to tolerate other people's viewpoints means that you have to accept and love them and be okay with how they're living their lives. It's not the same thing. So this kind of is just, there's so many holes in this argument. It drives me absolutely crazy. And she's like a Harvard professor. It's like you can write something like this and then
very biased, actually.
Think that it's okay. Alaina, did you have another point that you would like to make?
Well, it mentions the HSLDA, which is Homeschooling Legal Defense Association,
which we do support.
Yeah, I mean.
So, by the way, people listening,
they have an academy, like an online academy, and I've taken Spanish 2 and 3 and pre-calc and trig with that, and it's awesome. I mean, I have live classes, homework.
The teachers are top notch.
Yeah. And it's pretty awesome.
I don't know. My teacher's top notch too.
But it says in here, so what do you think about this paragraph that talks about HSLDA saying that there's really no organized political opposition to them? So basically they get their way.
I feel like people do oppose
really. I mean, I don't really know a lot about like their political part. Okay. It's mostly like their academy that I'm more familiar with.
Okay.
But I have they care more about like homeschoolers, not like their rights, but kind of like being able to do what they feel like is best for their children, and not being like the government being like, okay, you have to do this and this and this, and they make the decision. Well, they want their parents to make the decision for what's right for like their children, and they're not just trying to like shoot down every government thing restricting homeschoolers. They're like, the government's like, homeschoolers should do this, and they're like, no, that's really not what they do.
Right. They're very advocate to parental rights, which is one reason why I support them. And the fact that they believe that the parents have the ultimate right to decide what's best for their children.
I mean, you know your children better than the government does.
Because like the part down here, it says Bartholet maintains that parents should have quotes very significant rights to raise their children with the beliefs and religious convictions that the parents hold. That's the same thing as HSLDA. And then she argues that requiring children to attend schools outside of the home for 6 or 7 hours a day does not unduly limit parents' influence. So it's kind of weird because...
Yeah, because I mean, it does though.
It does, yeah. 6 or 7 days in other people's
in the middle of the day too. Like, all your parents, like, if they're working and you come home and they're like tired of working and they're like making dinner and then you're tired of doing your homework, like there's barely any interaction really.
Yeah, you're not.
So there's not a lot of time to influence your children because they're being influenced like all their waking days at school with their friends.
Right. So if a parent wants to homeschool and they're not allowed to, but so the kids are going to be sent to school, the mom is at home, she has an hour or two in the morning
to influence her kids,
and then the kids come home.
They're getting ready for school too, so they're busy. I mean, they're doing stuff.
Kids come home,
and they have homework when they get home.
They have homework or they have after school activities. Mom's getting dinner ready, has a little bit of influence. Okay, some time to talk about.
Set the table, do your dishes.
That's like our influence right there.
Yeah, there's our world right there. Chores. And then they have to get them ready for bed or let them do their homework and they go to bed. So the fact that she's saying, though, and she's talking out of both sides of her mouth, and the fact saying that, okay, you should have the right to influence your child, and you have, as a parent, significant rights for your religious convictions, but you should be coming to school so that we can undo them for you.
Yeah.
And it's like...
The very next sentence is crazy. She quotes, "The issue is, do we think that parents should have 24/7 essentially authoritarian control over the children from ages 0 to 18? Yes.
But she says,
they're your kids.
She says, I think that's dangerous.
because she's like, okay, parents are going to influence their kids how they want, but that's not what we want. We want them to be at school so we can influence them. So it's dangerous if we let them stay at home because they're going to be influenced, not the way that we want them to be.
Yeah, and she said at the beginning of that sentence that we think that our parents have the highest form of like control,
authority,
because they're your parents.
Yeah, but we're gonna ignore that and say that you have to come.
But that's dangerous.
Yeah.
She also continues to say, "This is my favorite quote," and I think we should end on this one actually because like
it's getting long.
This is an article.
I think it's always dangerous to put powerful people in charge of the powerless and to give the powerful ones total authority. She's referring to parents.
What about the teachers? Is it
she says
in the schools
about the parents? I think it's always dangerous to put parents in charge of their children and to give the parents total authority.
Why?
Isn't that just makes me just irate?
I mean, like before they started having public schools, like there was years where like back in history, where parents had total authority of their children.
And it's not that far ago.
I know, it wasn't. Like
this whole public school system is not. It's new.
Yeah, there's still people like on this earth. Not all of the children like somehow died or anything. I mean,
yeah, to take this right away from parents because it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of true too. It is a true statement, like putting dangerous powerful people in charge of powerless and give them total authority. I mean, like, what do you think the teachers are doing? They're like the powerful people, and like if it's referring to the powerless as children, that's a situation, then children are still powerless at school.
Right.
And you put powerful people with total authority over the students, it's not really any different. Right. They can influence them however they want to, as long as it's not a Christian worldview. Just as long as it's not a Christian.
No, don't do that one. No.
Yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts before we close up from our rants today?
I'm exhausted from ranting.
I think it's about time to get started in our school. It totally is.
Really quick link to what Alaina just said. The movie God's Not Dead 2 kind of had the same thing where the teacher expressed a Christian view and got in trouble for it.
Mm-hmm. Right, and she just answered a question about Christianity in the school and got in trouble for it. So
it's a really awesome movie. I totally suggest watching
it.
God is Not Dead and God is Not Dead too. Both of them, yeah. It's kind of, it has a neat just discussion too about just having just a Christian influence in schools and about how much it's been taken away.
Yeah.
And I love the fact though, all this aside, I love the fact that as a homeschooler, I can expose you to so much. I can expose you to the Christian worldview, and I can expose you to the atheist worldview and to the other ones, and we can have those discussions.
In schools, it's like, okay, you can choose your own worldview as long as, like, we're going to only teach the, like, evolution and anything because everything else is dangerous.
Right.
Like, and we don't want to teach anything else. And then here, like in homeschooling, we learn about, like, creation and everything like that. But we also learn about, like, all the other worldviews, too. And you can make your own decisions, too.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. And the ability to be able to do that is powerful. Mm-hmm. It's more powerful. And I think it's scary to people like Erin O'Donnell and her friend Elizabeth Bartholet. So
again, forgive us for probably mispronouncing Bartholet.
Yep, and we are coming on with a new podcast at the beginning of May, the first Friday of May. So we're going to be talking about
creating opportunities.
Yep,
I think we're going to be talking about like reviewing for a book and movie combination.
Yeah.
It's really cool. One of our favorites.
And a fun creator corner coming up. So stay tuned and thanks for listening, guys. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.